Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Anyone ever encountered feral people, wild men, or hermits while in a woods? Saw a thread on /k/ where someone was talking about being stalked by a ragged man with a gun in the woods. Was wondering if anyone has had similar experiences and how common it is.
I got a bit of a story. I'm going to Greentext because it's short and why not? Be my family out in the Rockies for a summer backpacking trip. So far, everything is going well and we're having fun. Eventually, we get to a place where my dad wants to set up camp. Eventually, it gets dark, and after eating some dinner, we all head to bed. As I'm falling asleep, I hear whooping out in the woods. It sounds like the type of whooping a caveman would make as they're moving around in a forest. Then there's more whooping. It's coming from all around us. We're supposed to be the only ones here for miles. I'm a jumpy kid, so this freaks me out a bit. Suddenly I heard a gunshot. This wakes up my dad and he starts freaking out. More gunshots and whooping. There's a ghastly human scream for help as the people keep whooping. We freak out and start trying to hide our camp. We sit there for hours and eventually the whooping and gunshots die off in the distance. We wake in the morning and start packing up to get out of there. Suddenly we hear a voice in a tree. This obviously startles us. We look up and see an old dude sitting in a tree with a machete. He's missing a bunch of teeth, bleeding, and has really unkempt hair and beard. My dad asks if he can help him. He just starts whooping. We book it out of there. So yeah, IDK what was going on or who those people are, but I still wonder what they were doing and what the man in the tree wanted.
So I live in northern Canada. Basically, so up north, my backyard basically ends with a thick forest. I have ventured out in the woods even since my childhood, so I know about a 5-mile radius. Only been wandering around, maybe went camping for a night once or twice. Haven't ever found anything too spoopy. Just carcasses and bones and shit you can find in any forest. Once, only once did I think of something you don't just come across. A circle or stomped out grass. Like, not the filling of the circle was stomped out, but the outline. And it was dotted too. Now it must have taken a lot of time, since the snow was plowed out of the circle too, as if someone took the time to do it. I was about 12, so I didn't really think much of it. Snow eventually covered it up and I forgot about it. This year, though, I think I have found something related. I am 23 now and still live here. My father died some years ago in a car accident, and my mother now lives in an elderly home for disabled. She never really recovered after losing my father. I have 2 siblings, so usually it's just me and my cats. On to the incident then. I was out in the woods as per usual. I go out as much as I can, maybe to relieve stress or good old nostalgia. I don't know. It just clears my mind and I can forget about the shit of life I live. I may have ventured a bit farther than I usually do. My mind was in a dark place at that time. Let's just say I don't have much luck with the ladies. It was still early afternoon, and there was quite some light even in this dense forest. Admiring the scenery, I just realized that I don't really know where I am. Sure, I knew the general direction I came from, but I have never been there. I was just about to turn around when I saw something that made me recall memories of that circle. Well, because it was the same. Snow gone, stomp marks on the ground. I went on to investigate. After a few minutes, I realized that I couldn't have been in the same circle since it was much, much farther than I would have gone as a kid. But how did it get there? This far up north, the closest neighbor is miles away. Well, it was on a clearing, so I thought it was some landmark for airplanes. I now know that it sounds ridiculous, but I was okay with my theory back then. I stayed there for like 10 minutes, but since there wasn't anything interesting, I left it to that and went home. I remember having some trouble finding my usual route back, but I got home before dinner time. I fed my cats and went to sleep. Nothing really interesting happened for weeks. The problem was that I had nothing to do. On weekdays I worked, on weekends I hiked. I've been doing it for years, but suddenly I got bored of it. I couldn't really tell why, so I started thinking about things to do. Maybe I should write a book. Turns out it was a shitty idea. It's not that I'm bad at writing, but I had nothing to write about. I didn't want to be all edgy like most fantasy writers, but dramas and detective stories seemed boring to me. Apparently, my only escape from writer's block was, who would have thought, the forest. So there I was again, in the woods. With no real goal in my mind, I just roamed on. Maybe I should draw a map and make money from it. I was damn sure satellite images couldn't penetrate the leaves. Now, why anyone would need a map of this forest, I wasn't sure. There weren't any ruins or buildings or anything, just woods. Nonetheless, I took on this project. Some months passed, and I had a pretty accurate map of the radius I knew like the back of my hand. I got so caught up in it that I wanted more, and so my new idea was camping out on the edges of the map and doing some exploring each day. This way, the map quickly expanded. The routine was as follows. I pack up my stuff and choose one of my paths. Camp on a clearing as close to the unexplored habitat as I just can. Inspect the way I came on the map. Do some fixing if needed. Do some exploring, but get back to camp before sundown. Make sure no animals will start shit with me, and watch the fire. Do some sketches on the area I explored. Repeat until the map was good enough. Aside from encounters with wolves and a bear once, nothing too extreme happened. I always brought my shotgun with me, so I felt fairly safe. But oh boy, does it get spoopy now. One night when I was laying in my tent, trying to get some sleep, I heard a soft thumping sound. Now, since I roamed this forest for about 15 years, I knew each sound of it. This one was completely new. So much that there was no way I wouldn't see what made it. Luckily for me, it was a clear night and a full moon. This combination, let me tell you, it was rare. It's always snowing here. I grabbed my gun and a flashlight, but didn't turn it on. I didn't want to scare away whatever I might find. I also read once that hunters climb trees to look around, so I went as close as I felt safe and started climbing. I didn't see what made the sound from the ground, but once I got up I had a clear view. And I almost shat my pants. Naked humans standing in a perfect circle stomping on the snow. My first reaction was to scream, but I restrained myself. I was sure that if I did, my life would end. I didn't ever dare to move as some faced my general direction. I couldn't see their eyes, but I was goddamn sure they'd see me. So I stayed on the tree for the rest of the night, just watching them. After accepting my situation, I found that I was actually inspecting them. They didn't do anything other than stomping on the ground. It was so cold that even I shuddered, but they didn't. Not even when stinging winds stormed through the forest. Not even when the snow started falling. I didn't really notice that the moonlight faded. Maybe my eyes aligned with the lights, or rather than darkness. But I could see those creatures. I was damn sure they're not people, clearly. Well up until it started snowing. I have never been out in a storm, and I haven't intended to. I had to move. If I don't, I would freeze to death. If they come after me, I still have a shotgun. So I jumped down and ran. To be more accurate, I first face-planted the snow, then power crawled to my tent. Sitting up on a branch in the cold night, not daring to move, froze my body. I mean, no frost burns, but I could barely move my legs. I was sure I'd die. Through sheer luck, I tell you, I got back to my tent and started a fire. It was hard in the snowfall, but the charcoal was still hot, so I managed to live. For the next month, I noped out of the forest. I even thought about ditching the map project. Strangely, rather than that, I just marked about where I have seen them. Those things. After thinking a bit, I marked the other circle too. I tried recalling the very first I had seen, but I couldn't. It must have been way closer though, so I made a biggish marker. I had no idea what I saw and what those things were, but I found myself wanting to see them again. The map had a new purpose now, and so did I. I had to know. I started going out in the forest again. I always camped near the two circles, but I never saw or heard them again. Some nights I thought I did, but when I got up to find them, the sound stopped. Damn, I was sure I was hallucinating. I even lost sleep over this, so my routine had to change. Sleep during the day and roam the forest at night. I knew that it was dangerous, but I just recently lost my mother at that time. I had no friends, no girlfriend, no close relatives, just me in the forest, and those things apparently. After about a week of this and not finding them, I had the idea that they associate with the moon cycles. I have seen them during a full moon, and looking back the date, my previous circle finding was after a full moon too. so I made a moon calendar. I had internet access, of course, and even tried looking up these things, but I found nothing. Not wanting to miss them if my theory wasn't right, I explored the forest every night. I even stood out camping for multiple days at instances. There were plenty of mice in my house, so I knew my cats would be okay. Then came the big night. I ventured as far as I felt safe in unexplored territory and stood up all night. The moon wasn't out this time, but it wasn't snowing. I worried I'd miss them. Thinking about that night still scared me shitless, but now I had a feeling that they are the prey and I am the hunter. Maybe half of the night passed, and nothing. I was so curious that I left my tent. I don't know why. I just started walking again. I had lost all hope, but then finally, thump, 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 thump. And it came from close by, but it was all weird, like it didn't fade in. Just out of the blue, the sound was there. Silence in 1 second, thumping in the next. And it was much, much louder than before. I must have been closer. The moon was still under a cover of clouds, so it was pitch black. I turned on my flashlight. First, I pointed at the ground and slowly upwards in the distance. What I saw made me lose my shit. About 20 meters from me, they were there. And there was not a tree, not a bush between us. They must have seen me. There was no way they didn't. I mean, shit, I had a flashlight. I was so shocked that not a sound came out of me. I couldn't even turn off the flashlight. I was mesmerized. But they didn't stop. They just stomped the ground. But this time some of them had hair. Some even looked like women. And being so close, I heard something that I have never ever counted on. They talked. I even saw their mouths move in the light. But it was all wrong. They didn't talk to each other. Just repeated some not understandable gibberish, over and over and over again, not even in a rhythm with each other. Most of them had the same thing, but pairs of even triples of them were saying the same. I had no idea how long I stood there. I just couldn't get myself to move. They didn't mind me being there yet, but I was sure any movement would mean certain death. I admit I even pissed myself at one point. At least it was warm. Then the morning came, and just as it started, they vanished. I thought I was blinking or something. They were there one moment, and not in the next. I waited for about 5 minutes and got myself to move. I went to the circle and inspected it more carefully. There were 14 of them, about 2 meters radius. I immediately checked my map. Funnily, walking in the night, I got back to territory which was already mapped. I marked the circle and got back to my tent, then immediately home. I was right. They appeared at full moons. With this discovery, I changed my routine yet again. I stood home and worked between full moons, but got out in the forest to see more of them. Months passed by, and every time I have seen them again. The circles varied in numbers of its members, what the gibberish were, and even how they moved. For example, in one circle, 2 creatures periodically changed places. Then in another, they didn't stomp, just stood there. Then came a very big event, an eclipse. A lunar eclipse, and I don't mean a new moon. New moons meant nothing to them. I never found any during the new moon. But an eclipse, that may have had an effect on them. There was a 200-meter radius area in which I have found them most, so I planned on going there. Sadly, one of my cats had died. I didn't count it related to the circles, though. She was just very old. I had that cat ever since I can remember, so I was sad. Nevertheless, I went out that night too. I was so excited I just couldn't sit in one place. I didn't ever care about the moon. I flashed my flashlight all over the forest. I found that they didn't really care about me. Once I even went into the circle and they didn't even look up. Then the thumping came, but not like usual. It started just as suddenly, but after a second it got louder and out of rhythm. Then again, and again. I couldn't really comprehend what was happening. Then I realized. There were more circles. Not one, but at least 5 of them. I could have lost count in my surprise. I was scared but excited, even nervous. Never before did I think that there were this many of them. The largest circle had about 20 freaks, but now there could be even 100. I climbed the nearest 3 just like many weeks ago and looked around. There sure were 5 circles, spread all over the place. I mean, not in like the 5 points of a pentagram, just all over without any order. Two of them almost collided. I looked up to the moon, and it was just minutes until the full eclipse. The thumping was loud now. I even found myself tapping the rhythm on the tree, but what happened next made me never come back. The eclipse was at its peak. The moon completely vanished, and with it did the thumping. For a second, then every circle started screaming like I was scared shitless. I dropped my flashlight but didn't care for it. What I cared about was what the falling light showed me. All the freaks turned in my direction, and still screaming started running to my tree. Holy shit, I knew I'd die. There was no way I'd survive. I still had my shotgun, but the bullets were in the camp. I only had 2 rounds loaded, 2 shots, and that was it. The very moment I saw one under the tree, I fired. Maybe I can kill one and scare away the others. My plan half worked. The one I shot did die, but the others didn't care. Some even started eating the body. I was fucked. Luckily, they couldn't climb up, but in return, they started shaking the tree. I shot another round but missed completely. Out of depression, I threw down my gun at them and tried climbing higher. The eclipse was long gone and they still didn't disappear. In my clouded mind, an escape plan escalated. Jump the treetops to home and call the cops. I didn't know what I'd tell them or how I'd enter my home with these freaks chasing me, but I didn't mind. Obviously, after the second jump or so I felt. I fell into a heap of screaming, bloodthirsty freaks. I was going to die. Apparently, I wasn't dead. What happened was nothing. They just stood there around the tree I was on originally. No screaming, no thumping. Maybe they lost me when I jumped and was satisfied that I disappeared. I had no idea. I still saw them in the light of my flashlight, but didn't care. I got up and ran as if these demons of hell still chased me. I was about 5 kilometers from home, and I swear I ran all the way. By the time I got home, it was early morning. I got in and locked the door. I didn't actually call the cops, but never went back that deep into the forest like in the past few months. This experience still scares the living shit out of me. I am sure that if they somehow managed to track me down, I'd die. What makes it even worse is that my other cat has gone missing.
Feral humans didn't have anywhere near the health issues that we do today. Neither do any other feral animals. They also didn't have doctors, dentists, hygienists, and corporations pushing cleaning products down their throats. Realistically, a high roughage diet requires so much intake that the food alone is enough to keep your mouth clean. It's only because of the incredibly dense and excessively sugary foods we eat today that we go long periods of not using, and therefore not cleaning our mouths. Consider the fact that only humans and domesticated animals have health issues, and you'll understand that is really what's killing us. A few generations of humanity going back to the woods, and all genetic diseases and stupidity would be erased from the gene pool.
And don't fall for this romantic view of wild people being all healthy and shit. They had fleas, lice, internal parasites leeching on their nutrition, STDs, and all sorts of ugly shit. Their teeth would serve them for a lifetime, yes, but their lifetime was about 40 years. Just look at some of the last remaining tribes. Their children have nice teeth, but by the time they turn 40, they often have less than half of them. Feral people died of trivial things like childbirth, appendix inflammation, or infected wounds, developed into gangrenous mess of pus, blood, and agony, which we today treat with some peroxide and gauze, maybe a day's dose of pills. They believed in all sorts of shamanic bro science and rituals making things worse. Also, do not think for a second that people ate more often and more than we do today because they ate less energy-dense foods. No, they often starved. As a result, they had smaller frames, were skinnier and shorter. They had all sorts of deficiencies. The only point that I would agree on would be that their food was more pure of artificial chemicals and their environment was less polluted. They had probably less respiratory problems and close to none allergies, because even if they had, evolution would quickly take care of that. But don't think for a second that they had more potential for quality life than us health-wise. It's just that we choose to not give a damn about our health often because of other circumstances and belief that medicine will save us eventually.
Nothing really paranormal outside of the Altamaha River monster. Occasional sightings of Bigfoot or the skunk ape. Just the usual shit. Mosquitoes, feral hogs and dogs, multiple species of pit vipers, edgy cottonmouth, eastern diamondback, etc., poisonous spiders, brown recluse, black widow. A hunter killed a Florida panther as far north as Troup County, Columbus. But that's been 8 years ago and they haven't found any across the state since. I think I read that outside of Alaska and Texas, or maybe Washington. Georgia has the most wooded acreage in the US. Those Finding Bigfoot dudes didn't even want to spend the night in our woods when they came to Georgia to investigate. They were far too creeped out by it. Before I got married, I would camp alone very often and at all times of the year. I once camped on Johns Mountain in northwest Georgia a few years back, and left because I got the strangest feeling of being watched. I had made camp and already started dinner when I finally decided I was leaving after I finished eating. I was camped on the southeast face of the mountain, which faces a massive WMA. The mountain itself is in the middle of a fairly decent-sized area of the Chattahoochee National Forest. Anyways, I got home and for shits and giggles I looked up the area for any BFRO reports. Sure enough, it had more reports than anywhere in the state going all the way back to the 1970s. I didn't see or hear anything, but I have never had that feeling before or since. I always camp with my pistol and a rifle, but even then I did not feel safe in the woods. Pigeon Mountain isn't far from Johns Mountain at all. Beautiful part of Georgia. That whole slice of northwest Georgia is great. I actually proposed to my wife at Cloudland Canyon. As for the story, not much beyond what I shared, I guess. I'll try. It was early spring. In fact, I remember being pissed at how much pollen there was on the leaves and on my gear. I set up camp mid-afternoon, went to the creek at the base of the mountain to fill up, came back and started to gather wood. I like fires all night because of mosquitoes and the like. I remember the wind was not too bad, but steady enough that I was going through firewood like crazy. I had just started boiling water for an early dinner, 4-ish. Sun would be going down in about an hour and a half, when I really took my first break to look around and soak it all in. If you ever go to Johns Mountain, I was camped about 200 yards off of the road. Shortly after you enter the road to the top of the mountain, it makes a sharp right and down the hill to the creek. At that sharp right, I was camped at 10 o'clock position. Anyways, I noticed two things. One, it was far too quiet. This was still a few months before fawning, but there was no reason for there to be almost no wildlife sound. That unnerved me because this wasn't my first time camping in that area. I had been there just weeks prior. The other thing that was unnerving was that I was completely alone. When I got there, I drove to the top just to take photos. No one there. I passed no one on the way back. I had heard no activity on the gravel road either. I also saw no one on the Pinhoti Trail, which was across from me, maybe 100 yards. So my water starts to boil and I dump in some dried meat and noodles, and between that and the breeze, I hear nothing. Never experienced anything like it in my life. I've camped in just about every spot in North Georgia, all the way down to Oconee and Jackson. I would say I'm fairly competent with our outdoors. That's when the sensation hit me. You're being watched. As I said, I carry firearms with me, but that's because of humans. I camped in Susha's once and did so right in the middle of a poacher's baited area. It wasn't pleasant when he showed up. Anyways, I had literally no reason to be afraid, but for some reason I was. Having two firearms on me meant nothing. Now, I'm not saying I heard a voice in my head saying get out or anything crazy like that, but I just got a feeling over me that I shouldn't be there. I don't get scared easily, and I've never felt unsafe amongst nature, so I didn't bother questioning it. I didn't want to spend the rest of the night like this, so I finished cooking, ate, and packed up and left. I read reports on BFRO in the area when I got back. A few were eyewitness sightings, creepy stories. If I recall correctly, one couple was out in the woods one night and saw something moving towards them. Another reported hearing loud screams in their direction. I haven't been back in the area since. That was 2013.
One evening, I went fishing with a bro down on Beaver Creek in Kentucky, not far from the house. Get to the fishing spot around 5 p.m.-ish. September last year. Be fishing, burning them up and filling the stringer fast with big, plump, delicious bluegill. Decide to build a fire and stay late. Got 2 mag lights and lantern, fuck the dark. Decide to try for catfish. Accidentally kicked the tackle box while messing with fire. Bro goes around picking up what he can find. I'm still trying to keep the fire from going out. Look back and he's walking off into the woods. He must need to piss. Leave him be. Hey, Anon, come look at this, he says from the woods. Sure, it must be something cool. Get Maglite and see what's up. Can't find bro. Hear bro pretty far off. You won't believe this. Hurry. Ask where he is. Ask him to shine the flashlight. See light way off in the distance. WTF, no way he got that far in like 10 minutes. Turn around and look at the fishing spot. See campfire. See bro in his fishing chair. Not sure who is who. Go back to the fishing spot. Bro acting normal. Must have taken a long dump, dude. You were gone for almost an hour. No way. Yeah, I had to shit pretty bad. Must have been that shitty beef jerky you got. I played it off like nothing happened because I would have never heard the end of it from him. The voice in the woods sounded just like my friend. Sounded just like the way he would talk. We stayed later. I'll tell what happened after that in the next post. Continue fishing. No luck. Trying to ignore what happened earlier. Keep hearing someone walking back where I heard the voice. Ignore, don't want to act like a wuss. Reeling in, I feel my hook snag something big. Not fighting my fishing rod, just dragging something big in. Probably a log or something stupid. Get tired, it was huge. Let bro take a turn dragging it in. Still hearing the footfalls behind us. Hearing a lot of them now. Getting really nervous. Stop reeling, said a voice from behind us. Man standing in the tree line right behind us. It ain't no business of yours. Bro drops pole. We both stood there speechless. Best y'all get on out before trouble starts. We're like, yes sir, sorry to bother you, we'll go now. Pack up and GTFO. On the way out, see a few flashlights off into the woods a bit. No idea what they were doing. Rumors around town said a boy was missing and never found around that creek. We never went back there. I still fish, but if I get snagged up on something big, I just cut my line and rehook. I really don't want to know.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.